Hello, everybody. This is the CT Sports Talent Show. My name is Chris Saunders, and I'm pleased to have on who has been a part and a big part of what potentially could be a new age of Connecticut high school football and was a part of this proposal. I talked to Al Carbona, the SEC, just a few days ago, and now I'll be talking with Jim Buonocore, who is with the ECC and also the Ledyard AD. Jim, I appreciate you coming back on the show.
Oh, hey, Chris, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You and I were just going back and forth, and there's a lot to kind of chew with this. And I know you've got a short amount of time because you're a busy man. So I'll kind of keep it short here. But as far as with this proposal, and I'll try to hit on some of the big parts. I know you and I were talking about Thanksgiving. I know Al and I pretty much hit that like a dead horse. So we're not going to hit on that anymore. But I want to talk about kind of the meaning of this proposal. And I know the biggest factor is not just helping, obviously, because there's two groups of teams. You've got the top tier teams, then you've got the teams that obviously are maybe not the powerhouses, but still very, very good, right? And that's why I know in terms of the SEC, they have a tier system. I know in the NVL, they just adopted a tier system last year for football, and they just did it this year for basketball. So, and I mentioned with Al as far as if you are the 22nd team in, let's say, whatever class, let's say S, will you get the 22nd schedule? I like that from the perspective of it allows programs and teams to build on that success and grow from that. So that way you can get, like he said, next year you'll be 21, then 20, then 19, and so on. Can you hit on that a little bit?
Yeah, that's really the basis of this proposal is a statewide scheduling model that allows schools to play the majority of their regular season within the classification that the CIAC places them in. And we all know at this point it's based on enrollment with a couple multipliers put in for schools of choice. Um, we found, in our 7 years now with the Alliance, where we're providing games to members of the Alliance against like-sized schools, schools that are comparable in strength of program, and the matchups are extremely competitive. They're extremely exciting, and it's been good for our sport. And so the basis of this proposal was expanding it so that it became more than just one or two games per season, but potentially whether it be a full season or ramping it up to a certain percentage, 60, 70%, because we found the feedback's been very positive, particularly from smaller schools and schools that are struggling, to remain competitive within their league. A story I'll share with you and your viewers. We have down in our league, the Eastern Connecticut Conference, we've had a couple schools that have been struggling, since the return to football from COVID. 21, 22, I think the team won one game total out of that 2 seasons of competition. The Alliance game this year to open the season was extremely competitive for them. And I ran into a parent of a player of an athlete on that team. They were at our place. They had a child playing another sport. And the father came up to me and said, I want to thank you, the Alliance. That game that we played in week 1 was extremely competitive. It set the tone, for a positive season for our athletes, for our coaches. It changed the whole complexion of who they were going into the season as a football program, because they played a game that was competitive and meaningful. And in the process, we were able to remove a game that we would have had to have given them as a league, because we're mandated to provide so many games. We removed the game that was probably going to be, not very competitive. And so that's really kind of the thought process and what we do. And as the scheduler down in the ECC, I do all the football scheduling for our 14 league member schools. And I can tell you from, a league that has a wide range from class S to class double L size schools, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to provide, full schedules. And so the Alliance has been a huge bonus for us in staying together and being able to provide matchups that make sense within the league. But then when we run out of matchups that make sense, I can go to the Alliance and bring in games for my league members and provide them with full schedules. And the feedback's been extremely positive from our league. And I know that expansion in terms of that type of scheduling would be certainly welcomed.
Looking at the proposal and, obviously I know you and I were talking about the Thanksgiving Day side, which I hit on with Carbone from the SEC. And that wasn't even something that was like fully like on the top of the page. It's like if you keep going down and down, like you said, it was more of a question. But I know in terms of the articles that have been written from various media outlets is that was kind of the one where they want the clicks and the people to check on it, because I know that's it made quite a stir. As I told you, I got some texts myself, like, because the big game in the NBL is Ansonia Naugatuck, and I was getting texts like, "Is this the last game that you guys are going to be doing? Last game that's ever going to be had?" I'm like, "Well, no. It's just it may be played on Columbus Day, or it'll be played on a different day. It just may not be on Turkey Day." But I digress. I want to stay on the alliance part, and I know that the Pequot, the NVL, and I think some of the tech teams do not do the alliance. Is that something that could still be? Now, I know the proposal is still going to be taking place as far as through the committees and all that, but is there still going to be I don't want to say a push, but a conversation with the leagues that have not gone to the alliance and see maybe if they'll change their mind maybe one day?
Oh, absolutely. I think, we're always, open. This proposal, I think indicates that, we'd love to see full participation, because when you get full participation, it's only going to allow us to schedule even better and more competitive games when we start getting more schools to the table. If we could get every, football playing school in the state to participate, that would be outstanding. I think ultimately that's our goal. And hopefully one day we get there. We've attempted to get everybody to the table over the last 3 to 4 years. We've been unsuccessful, but it's grown. And as you mentioned, we do have about 6 schools from the technical league that have participated in. And they've participated, I think, in a manner that they seem to find beneficial. It's some of their stronger teams, and they do well. We give them games that make sense and games that are good for them in preparation for the state playoffs, because the teams that are coming from the tech league into the alliance are state playoff teams. They're teams that are getting in, over the last 2 years. So I think it's been good for everybody in that regard. But yeah, we felt it was time, to put the proposal out for everybody in hope that, the membership will grow. It's pretty clear to me that I think the timing was right, because, as you read through the state media, there's been feedback that, I've read where coaches, have issues with their respective leagues in regards to scheduling. There are coaches who I think have, a feeling of, or conscientious about the leagues they're playing in, and is it good enough in terms of preparing them, for postseason competition. And in our case, I think we can provide, kind of answers to those concerns by giving you games that make sense, and putting everybody on an even playing field at the beginning of the season in regards to schedule strength, because it's going to be matched to the type of program that you are at that moment, at that time, and give you the best chance to, compete from the first week, to the, end of the season.
Another factor that has been expressed to me by some coaches in the MVL is the I guess committee that would be structuring this, because there wouldn't be no more NVL, FCAC, all of that. It would be all gone. It'd be strictly based, like you said, the state, so on and so forth. A part of the committee that would be making this schedule, who would it be? Like, I know, for prime example, the college football playoff, you've got ADs and other different aspects that come in. They stay for a couple years because that's the window that they have, 2 years. And the teams that, I guess, if I remember right, are a part of, if they are the athletic directors in this college football committee, if their team is in there, I guess they have to kind of disqualify themselves because of obviously the bias that they have. So with this committee, looking at it from that perspective, if it is passed, this proposal, and it goes through the chains, how would this committee be structured? Who would be involved in it?
Well, I'll give you the structure of the current alliance and how it works,
Okay.
and this actual proposal kind of takes that the objectivity out of the process of what we're doing now.
Okay.
So, for example, at this point in time, we meet at the CIAC offices typically 2 to 3 times. By the third, meeting, we've finalized the alliance games, and it's representatives from each participating league.
Mhm.
So Al Carbone from the SEC, Dave Schultz from the FCAC, Trish Whitkin from the CCC, Mark Berkowitz from the SWC. I represent the ECC. And typically those league reps will bring, an athletic director or two along with them to help with information that needs to be provided in terms of each particular program from their league.
Mhm.
And that would be, items such as, size of roster, how many starters have graduated, how many are returning, what was the size of the junior varsity team, what was the success level of the freshman and junior varsity team, do they actually have sub varsity teams? That's a big piece to the puzzle. What type of feeder system do those programs have? Has anybody transferred out? Has anybody transferred in? Is there a coaching change? So there's a lot of conversation that goes on into the scheduling aspect.
Mhm.
The last league, the tech league, has not been sending representative to the meeting. I've been working with them, getting the teams that they want in, and I've been providing them with games based off of information that I receive from around the state, and also from, speaking to representatives from the technical league.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how it works now. The new proposal actually takes a lot of that off the table because it's an algorithm. It's a plug and play model.
Mhm.
We've set it to where the CIAC playoff points would dictate your ranking. And as we talked about, the model we showed was a 22 team ranking. And obviously in some classifications, it would be 23, in some 24. Depends how the CIAC structures their divisions.
Mhm.
And so it would just be plug and play. And if you were seeded number one based off of, 2 years of playoff points, for example, you
Mhm.
would play the most difficult schedule that we've generated. If you were ranked number 22 and it was a 22 team division, you would play the least difficult schedule.
Mhm.
And so it takes out a lot of that conversation.
Mhm.
Now you could still have stakeholders from each league, at the table to discuss and make sure that, that's matching up correctly. But really it's becomes very subjective now, and eases some of the concerns of, do we think it's a good game, or yeah, it's a good game. Data's telling us this should be a good game.
Yeah.
And I find that interesting. And I also find it kind of refreshing, particularly for the schools that are struggling, throughout the state, whether it be, generating numbers in their programs to continue to field a team, or continue to field multiple teams. Sub varsity teams are extremely important to have in terms of, generating success in the sport of football. But also for the upper echelon teams, it's going to provide you a more competitive schedule in preparation for the state playoffs. So there's a lot of, I think, beneficial pieces to the alliance model of scheduling. Leagues, unfortunately, have changed, over the last 10, 15, 20 years. I could go back to 1988, 89, 90, when I was at New London High School, and we had a 10-team Eastern Connecticut Conference, and we played 9 divisional games, and you had one out of conference game, and your schedule was done. But also back then, there was 6 divisions. Only 2 teams made the state championship in each division.
Mhm.
And you played everybody in your league, and it didn't matter that New London, we were Class S. We still played Fitch, who was L, NFA, who was double L. but those days have changed. It's not the same anymore. And I think we have to kind of take a step back and realize that and try to make some positive changes that are beneficial for the current student athletes that are playing the sport of football. And football has steered more and more towards playing contests against schools that are of like size, and that are, in terms of program stature at that time, of like ability. And what this model does is it allows you to schedule games to hit all those points. And that's what I think is most interesting about this.
Jim, and I'll end it right here. And I appreciate you coming on. The conversations I think are huge, being able to bounce ideas off. And I really like the fact that you guys are taking into account graduations, how big are the JV programs, what was their success, obviously new coaches and all that. All that matters because there's so much things that goes into wins and losses, and that is such a big factor. And I'm very intrigued by how this proposal is going to go over the course of time and see what is going to happen, because I'll be keeping my eye on it. Obviously, you're a part of it. Carbone's a part of it, Berkowitz, all of them. So it's going to be a lot of fun to be able to follow this. Jim, I appreciate you coming on, buddy. Real pleasure.
Chris, thanks. I appreciate all you do for high school sports. You're a pleasure to listen to, and you did our boys basketball game last winter, and you were tremendous on the mic. So keep up the great work.
I appreciate it. That'll wrap things up here in the CT Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. I'm enjoying finding them all. Enjoy their shit, everybody, and be well.